Hi, I'm Phil Anderson and I'm running for United States Senate to represent Wisconsin. A couple of things are on my mind tonight. An analogy that some might think is overused, but I don't think it is, and a word that is grossly overused, especially by younger people, that we're going to use tonight. And let me explain a little bit. The analogy is that democracy is like two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. Now that gets used a lot by libertarians in order to sort of put this idea in people's heads that we should limit the amount of democracy that we're practicing in favor of personal liberty and personal freedom. And I agree with that 100% because when you think about it, every decision that's made at any level of government by a democratic body, whether it's a school board, a city council, a state assembly, the United States Congress, whatever, it is the majority imposing their will on the minority. Any vote there's people voting for it and people voting against it. And we can only assume, I guess in the absence of any other evidence, that it's done mainly on principle, that people support whatever's going on, and other people do not support whatever's going on for whatever reason. But it doesn't really matter what the reason is. The point is that no matter what, it's a majority of people that have an interest in passing what's going on, and a minority of people who are against it, or possibly a majority who are against it and a minority for it. But in any case, democracy is always those who benefit outweighing the needs, desires, or rights of those who do not benefit. The other word I want to bring up tonight is literally. Now, people, especially my kids, use the word literally a lot. They say it's literally this or literally that, and not always is that accurate. Sometimes they use that word when they actually mean virtually, or another word like it. But in this case, that analogy I just described, where democracy is literally like two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner, it is literally a perfect analogy in that, as I just said, it's always about, when any piece of legislation is brought before a body, it's always about who's interested, who's not interested, and the majority winning. The majority imposing their rights on the minority. And I would argue that the vision of the founders of this country, and even farther back, the vision of John Locke, the vision of the Magna Carta, any form originally that was a republic, was one where the very best government was not one of democracy, because they saw the flaw in it, but was one where people, to the extent that was possible, were making their own decisions, were deciding for themselves, where not every subject decided upon by people was the subject of a democratic vote, where we would all have to decide in the legislature what I could eat for lunch and what I couldn't, where I could drive or where I couldn't, whether I needed a passport to travel from one state to another or not, which is actually a situation that's coming up right about now. The best government is one that governs least. You've heard that one. But it's true because any government that revolves around democracy as its best option is one that no matter what is going to have the tyranny of the majority involved. The best government is one that governs least, leaving the maximum amount of decisions up to the individual. And only those decisions that affect everybody, or almost everybody, can be decided by a democracy, by some sort of representation, people going to a council or something like that. That's what we need to get back to. It's literally a perfect analogy that the wolves are voting to eat the sheep for dinner. So keep that in mind. When anything comes up in your local government, your state government, the federal government, it's not always best, it's almost never best to decide it democratically. It's almost always best to leave it up to the discretion of the individual and hope and expect and trust that they will act in accordance with their own beliefs and in the best interest of not only themselves, their family, but also their communities and the people of those around them. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.